In recent years, more and more people around the world are shunning the status quo and choosing to follow their hearts. In today's China View, we meet a group of non-Chinese whose hearts led them to China. Let's find out their inspirational stories.
As the reporter met Ian, he was cleaning the bamboo beams inside his house. It takes him up to 3 hours to wipe the 4 of them.
这个是用来清洁干嘛呢？
我要在这个房子前面搞一个地方给客人坐一下，如果是下雨。
Despite the traditional look of this Qing dynasty building in Yangsuo, Guilin, the residents are far from what you'd expect.
这里后面
In fact, the proud resident of this house and hotel is South African man Ian Hamilton, and he plans to live here for more than 20 years. Ian not only lives in the Garden Hotel, but is also behind all the construction work. He's created a hotel out of 3 old houses, with a history spanning 100 years. In 2009, Ian decided to rent the buildings from the local villagers. He then spent 3 years renovating them to create this hotel.
觉得这个房子都很漂亮，但是我看有几个已经破坏了，所以我怕明天一个都没有。我就要自己保护这个房子。住了20年，20年以后还给那个房东。我觉得过20年，他们可能都知道这个房子就是很重要的这个历史文化。夏天有客人往这里上，好漂亮。
Ian showed the reporter around the nearby mountain, from where one can see a landscape filled with the old houses of Zhoushan County in Yangsuo. Before 2001, Ian worked as the vice manager of a travel agency in Europe, where he was in charge of travel routes to Beijing, Shanghai, Yichang, Chongqing and Guilin. The company eventually set up an office in Yangzuo, and so Ian decided to move there. In order to introduce his company's travel information to tourists, he read a lot of Chinese history and culture books. His growing fascination with Chinese culture eventually led him to resign from his job. He then started to collect Chinese antiques as a hobby.
我觉得好漂亮，所以我就是找那个工人说不要丢了，要放在一个地方，我还要想一想怎么用。后来我就是觉得贴在这里。
Ian has been a keen artist since childhood. The surrounding wooden houses, wine glasses, water and mountains of Guilin have given him much inspiration. In the old house in Yangsuo, he also has his own painting room. Although Ian is single, he rarely feels lonely. His family back home often plead with him to return home, but instead he insists his family come to visit him. And so he bought 2 plane tickets for his parents to come and visit.
我的梦想是我会一辈子一直在中国。
People always say that the mountains and water of Guilin are the most beautiful outside of heaven. They will also agree that the mountains and waters of Yangzuo are the finest in the province. The landscapes of Guilin, which are one of the key scenic spots of China, recently appeared on the big screens in Times Square, New York. The West Street in Yangsuo, which is less than 1,000 kilometers long, is home to many non-Chinese families. Here one can find many foreigners who have fallen in love with the place and eventually chose Yangshuo as the destination to start their new lives. One of them is a Dutchman called Roland. As well as holding the main acting role in a promotional video for Manhattan Times, he also runs a local hotel. If he hadn't have travelled to Yangshuo in 2005, his life might have turned out very differently.
我觉得这个地方都很休息的，很休闲的。然后人都很好。但是这里的人都知道外国人每天有外国人进来，所以没人管我。我喜欢这样。
When he first came to Yangshuo, Roland worked as a teacher. This job is usually the first choice for many foreigners when they arrive in China. Yangshuo is also known as the biggest English corner in China, as there are currently more than 100 foreign teachers living in the county. At that time, Roland couldn't speak any Chinese, but after a while, his Chinese improved no end. In 2007, Roland met a girl who came from Liaoning in China, and they later married. Now he owns a small hotel too. Roland decorates the hotel with all of his favourite things.
我以前在荷兰也学的历史，然后我觉得这个是中国的历史，然后这个都是农民，然后我们酒店在农村里面，所以我觉得可以像这样用的。
Good. Really?
Between April and October, the hotel is usually filled with customers. The hotel staff can take care of the daily running of the hotel, which leaves Roland with lots of free time to read and listen to music.
我也很喜欢做自己的生意，但是在荷兰我又没办法，因为我毕业的时候我也没有钱，我也什么都不知道，但是在这里的机会比那边多。
Roland gets on very well with the local people. Whenever there is a wedding in the village, Roland is always invited by the villagers to join the meal. He also offers the traditional gift of a red envelope to the newlyweds. Just like Roland, there are around 1,400 people from 20 other countries and areas who've chosen to settle down in Yangshuo, and the number is still growing. Some of them have opened restaurants and others work as tour guides. Most of them have paid visits to the big cities like Beijing, Shanghai and Lijiang, but finally decided that Yangshuo is the place for them. Some people fall in love with Chinese culture and enjoy learning about Chinese history. Stephen Cram from Australia is one of these kinds of people. 20 years ago, he married his wife, Zhang Ruyun, who comes from Hong Kong. At the time, he was studying Chinese Kung Fu.
When I'm young, you see the Bruce Lee movie, Li Xiulong. Okay, so it's fighting like this. And then you see Shaolin with the no hair, the monk from Shaolin. So when you're young, you're only 15 or 16, you want to do Shaolin. Yeah.
Stephen Cram has studied more than 10 kinds of Chinese Kung Fu, including Shaolin and Tai Chi. He studied with a teacher in Chenjiagou, which is known as the birthplace of Tai Chi. Since then, he's taken part in Tai Chi competitions in Zhengzhou and Australia. In 2001, his teacher, Fu Nungbin, opened a Tai Chi school in Yangshuo, so Stephen decided to follow his teacher here to study.
You have a look, what do you see? Blue sky, green trees, fresh air, go to the river and you see fish in the river, you can swim. That's why you come here.
Stephen Cram and his wife's business has already enjoyed success in Australia. So, in 2010, the couple decided to start their semi-retired life in Yangshuo. They rented a house which can not only be used as a hotel, but can also act as a retreat just for the two of them.
I live here, I wake up, I practice Kung Fu, I go to bed. If I got no guests, I practice more Kung Fu. If I have a guest, then I serve the guests. Okay, but that's not important. If it's a business, I must be busy all day. It must be full, otherwise we're not making money. And then I've got to run around and try and advertise and get more people come in to keep the business full. I'm quite happy just being half full half the year.
Yes.
You know, on the holiday time, we have some friends come here, we have some guests, I make a little bit of pocket money. Okay, that pays for the rent. Okay, the rest of the year, this is my home. It's not a business.
The couple's life in Yangshuo is simple. They do some gardening and like to engage in environmental protection.
So this is part of the recycling, not just the rubbish, all the organic food.
They use glass to insulate their homes, sort the garbage and use plants to keep away mosquitoes. Sometimes Stephen enjoys shopping on the West Street, but most of the time he likes to volunteer. At the time of the interview, he wore a cap with the sign of Yangshuo Police International Volunteers.
And I probably think that when you talked to me before about cleaning the environment and what I like to do, I like to keep the place clean. So maybe the volunteer task force can get together one day and we go out and we have a clean-up day. So these are things that we do. Promote tourism, look after safety and security issues, but also the environment is very important. That's what brings people here, so it's important that we talk to people about keeping the place clean.
They say there's no place like home, and for Ian, Roland and Stephen, this is definitely true. Home is where the heart is, and their heart is planted in Yangshuo.